For years, Ozzy Osbourne seemed unstoppable, a living legend who defied the odds with every wild chapter of his life. But behind the scenes, things weren't as invincible as they seemed. Now, in a startling turn, a doctor close to Ozzy has broken their silence, revealing what really happened in the final days before the rock icon's reported passing. It's a side of Ozzy the world rarely saw, vulnerable, frail, and facing the harsh reality of years lived at full throttle. This isn't just about a man known for heavy metal chaos. This is about a human being confronting the inevitable. And for those who thought they knew the full story, the truth from behind the curtain is far more emotional than expected. The final procedure and the end of a painful chapter. On a quiet day, just 2 days before his death, Ozzy Osbourne underwent what would be his final medical procedure, a last-ditch effort in a long and grueling journey through physical torment. The music world had grown accustomed to seeing Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness, persevere through countless health scares. But this moment marked a turning point. With exhaustion painted across his face and pain clouding his eyes, Ozzy remarked solemnly to those around him, "I finally had my last procedure." It was a symbolic statement more than a medical update. For Ozzy, it signified the end of a near 5-year stretch of relentless surgeries, failed treatments, and unrelenting pain. "I can't believe I'm at the end," he told his wife Sharon. In that moment, it wasn't just the end of a procedure. It was the end of the hope that science and medicine could restore what had long been lost. Second, a spine in crisis. The physical collapse. Ozzy's spinal condition had been one of his most devastating ailments. A degenerative spinal issue, worsened by decades of energetic stage performances, left one part of his spine completely cut off from the essential flow of spinal fluid. This blockage caused nerve damage and neurological pain that would cripple him for extended periods. Doctors explained that cerebrospinal fluid was unable to pass through certain vertebrae, effectively strangling the nerve pathways and leading to both numbness and excruciating pain. For nearly 3 months at one point, Ozzy described being in a state of absolute diabolical pain. Movement was agonizing. Sleep became fragmented and elusive. The man who once commanded stadiums with electrifying presence now found himself confined to hospital beds and wheelchairs, clinging to moments of relief between procedures. The world mourns. A global icon passes. On July 22, 2025, the world received the devastating news. Ozzy Osbourne, the founding member of Black Sabbath and one of the most influential figures in rock history, had passed away at the age of 76. His death reverberated across generations of fans and musicians, prompting tributes from every corner of the globe. But beneath the headlines and mourning, the final months of Ozzy's life had remained shrouded in mystery. That veil was recently lifted, in part thanks to candid revelations from his personal doctor, who for the first time shared the details of Ozzy's health journey and the true causes behind his agonizing final days. The long descent, Parkinson's, and more. In 2019, Ozzy was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological disorder that would eventually rob him of many bodily functions. Parkinson's is a disease that slowly strips away autonomy, causing tremors, muscle rigidity, loss of balance, and a host of cognitive challenges. For Ozzy, the diagnosis marked the beginning of a rapid and merciless decline. Despite early attempts to slow the progression with medication, the disease's grip tightened. In his final months, tremors became constant and violent, making eating, dressing, and even simple tasks impossible without help. He fell frequently. His speech became slurred, and his posture hunched. Parkinson's wasn't just attacking his body. It was stealing his identity. V-spine, stage, and the toll of performance. Parallel to the progression of Parkinson's was Ozzy's battle with his spine, a direct result of his energetic, acrobatic performances over a 5-decade career. Years of headbanging, stage dives, and high-energy concerts took a brutal toll. He suffered multiple falls, including a devastating one in 2003 that dislodged metal rods in his back from a previous surgery. Recovery was long and painful. Numerous operations followed, some with little benefit. Pain management strategies evolved from physical therapy and opioids to more extreme interventions like nerve blocks and sedative-based pain relief. Nothing ever brought lasting relief. For Ozzy, movement became a painful memory rather than a daily act. VI. Addiction's long shadow. Ozzy's personal doctor made clear that many of his health issues stemmed not just from his professional lifestyle, but also from years of addiction. The effects of long-term alcohol and drug abuse lingered in his body, even decades after he had gotten clean in the late 1980s. These past indulgences had severely damaged his liver and kidneys. They had weakened his cardiovascular system, leading to arrhythmia and chronic fatigue. Ozzy's immune system was compromised, making it harder for his body to fight diseases, infections, and even to recover from surgeries. He frequently suffered from fluid retention, nausea, and dizziness. Even his mental health, long plagued by anxiety and depression, was partly a consequence of this earlier chapter in his life. 7. A body betrayed, the many faces of decline. Ozzy's final years saw the convergence of many ailments. The doctor revealed that Parkinson's, spinal damage, and organ decline created a perfect storm. Despite multiple treatment protocols, Ozzy was in constant pain. Painkillers dulled the sensations temporarily, but led to other issues: nausea, sleep disruption, and dependency. He used a wheelchair for the last year of his life. Eating required assistance. Conversations with family became increasingly limited, not just by his condition but by sheer fatigue. The image of Ozzy as the unbreakable rocker faded into one of a man physically devastated, emotionally fragile, and spiritually drained. The unseen battles, mental health. The doctor emphasized Ozzy's mental struggles. Depression and anxiety were frequent companions. At times, Ozzy expressed feelings of uselessness, mourning the life he had once lived. He spoke candidly about the fear of dying, not because he feared death, but because he feared being forgotten. He felt guilty about the burden he had become to Sharon and his children. Despite psychological therapy and the unwavering support of his family, particularly Sharon, Ozzy found it increasingly difficult to maintain emotional stability. Isolation from fans, from the stage, and even from his instruments left him feeling like a ghost of his former self. Music had been his soul's language, and losing it meant losing a part of his very being. The caregiver, Sharon's unyielding devotion. In the chaos of failing health, Sharon Osbourne remained Ozzy's rock. As wife, manager, nurse, and friend, she took on every role he needed. She coordinated with doctors, oversaw treatments, and provided emotional comfort. Her devotion was legendary. Friends close to the family remarked that Sharon barely slept, always at Ozzy's side. The doctor shared that Sharon helped Ozzy not just physically, but psychologically. She encouraged him to reflect, to find meaning in his struggles. She brought their children and grandchildren to visit regularly, ensuring Ozzy felt love, not loneliness. Sharon was the light in his dark world, a light that kept him tethered to hope until the very end. X, facing the end. Regrets, reflections, and peace. In his final days, Ozzy made a conscious decision to end aggressive treatment. It was a brave, lucid choice. He told his doctor, "I'm ready. I just want peace." This wasn't surrender, it was acceptance. He acknowledged his regrets, the years lost to addiction, the time stolen from his family, the tours that pushed his body past its limits. But he also found grace in forgiveness. Sharon's love and the forgiveness of his children lifted a burden from his heart. In those last days, he confided deep truths to Sharon. How much she had saved him, how without her, he might have died long ago. The conversations were filled with tears, but also laughter, shared memories of madness and music, of raising children and surviving chaos. His final message to his family and fans was simple, profound, and immortal. Don't live in regret. Forgive yourself and others. Live a life that truly matters. 11th. A legacy of music and meaning. Ozzy's legacy is monumental. From the raw energy of Black Sabbath to the soaring solos of his solo career, his music shaped generations. Albums like Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, and songs like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley aren't just hits, they're cultural landmarks. But Ozzy's legacy is more than music. It's one of survival, of overcoming addiction, of speaking openly about mental health, of showing the world that even legends bleed, and that there is honor in the fight. He taught us that resilience isn't about never falling. It's about rising, again and again, no matter how painful. And that love, unrelenting, unconditional love, is what makes life worth fighting for. 12th, an eternal flame. Farewell to a legend. Remembering Ozzy Osbourne. The death of Ozzy Osbourne is more than the loss of a rock icon. It marks the end of an era and the farewell of a cultural symbol. Ozzy wasn't just the Prince of Darkness. He was a man who lived his truth, stumbled often, and yet stood back up with grit, honesty, and a spark of undeniable humanity. His life was a raw, unfiltered journey of chaos, struggle, and ultimately, redemption. From the slums of Birmingham to global superstardom, Ozzy's rise was never clean or easy. His story is not one of flawless success, but of resilience. It's a story filled with public failures, personal demons, and the kind of mistakes that could ruin most people. But Ozzy was different. He wore his scars openly, not as shame, but as proof of survival. Each misstep in his life became a lesson, not only for him, but for those who watched him fall and rise again. What made Ozzy Osbourne unforgettable wasn't just his voice or stage presence, it was his vulnerability. Behind the wild persona and infamous antics was a man who deeply understood pain, loss, and the need for connection. His music channeled that understanding with haunting honesty. Tracks like Mama, I'm Coming Home, Crazy Train, and No More Tears weren't just songs, they were emotional outlets, reflections of a soul constantly wrestling with itself. Ozzy's legacy goes far beyond the music charts. He represented the idea that even the most broken among us are never beyond hope. That redemption is possible. That one can be both a rebel and a seeker of peace. He never hid his past, never pretended to be a saint. Instead, he embraced the duality within him, darkness and light, rage and tenderness, and in doing so, gave others the courage to embrace their own contradictions. In his final message to fans, Ozzy left words that now feel like a blueprint for life. Nothing is impossible. Forgive, love, and live with passion, just like I did. These words echo with meaning. They remind us that life isn't about perfection, but about effort, about how fiercely we love, how bravely we forgive, and how fully we live, even when the odds are stacked against us. Ozzy Osbourne's music will continue to echo through generations, but it's his spirit that will live on most vividly, in the hearts of those he inspired, in the outcasts he empowered, and in every soul who found courage in his journey. Farewell, Ozzy. You taught us that even in the darkest hours there's beauty to be found and light to reach for. The world may have lost a man, but it gained a legend that will